Going to the licensing office at Rice Road in Port Spain
is the most backward system I've ever seen in any civilized country.
$45 for one movie, or you're getting to see 2 or 3 movies for that?
That's someone very obscene to the woman, showing them middle finger, using the 4-letter word.
I'm back. I hope some of you are still out there following the offense of the first episode. But that's what this show is all about. Well, Carnival is over, thank God. The glitter, the color, and the women winding down the place are all gone. Let us now take a fond look back with some special images captured by our intrepid cameraman. Now, as you know, horses used for crowd control are put through rigorous training to prepare them for the distractions of Carnival, drunken people and whatnot. We came across a horse that appeared to have been trained in Carnival dancing. I'm not kidding. Take a look. I was told the officer had a great deal of difficulty tearing the horse away from the steel band. On the subject of horses, I was wondering, could they not starve those horses for a day or two before bringing them out onto the streets? I don't know. All of the horses seem to be competing with the truck DJs to see who could have the highest output of. The DJs won, hands down, by the way. Now, the reviews for Carnival were mixed. Of course, the government is going to say it was a resounding success, but many of the masqueraders lamented the lack of the Savannah stage, saying that without it, the experience was simply not the same.
It's a very orgasmic feeling when you cross the stage, and it's very strange not to do it. You don't feel like you did anything, really.
Of course, the government could never have anticipated that the change of venue could have resulted in a diminished sexual experience for the masquerader. Now, it is not often that I will run to the defense of the government, but in this case, I feel compelled because citizens cannot expect the government to take responsibility for how we get our respective grooves on. You know, recently I recall seeing former Miss Universe Wendy Fitzwilliams being interviewed on television. She was being asked to comment on the songs on offer for this season. Her opinion was that there were many excellent compositions out there. She seemed quite excited by it as well. Well, apart from being equipped with timeless beauty and a body that won't quit, notwithstanding the physical demands of motherhood, she is also obviously possessed of an intelligence that informs the diplomacy that inspired her answer. Fortunately, I am not, well, let me say, I am unfettered by the constraints of intelligence and tact. I want to take a look at some of the lyrics from one or two of the more popular numbers for the 2007 season. This is a song by Iwer George called Fete After Fete. Going round the country, mashing up fete, fete after fete, after fete, after fete. They want me to retire, but me ain't ready yet. Fete after fete, after fete, after fete. He going round TNT, mashing up club, club after club, after club, after club. Don't buy from a scalper, you might get rub. Club after club after club after club. Jump up, mashing up fete is my name. Jump up, jump and wave is my game. Jump up, jump and wave, let me see your rag, 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 and so on. You get the general idea. We're accustomed to this sort of banal emission from Iwer George. That is his stock in trade. Let's take a look at another intellectual irritant. This one is called Soca Frog. It goes a little something like this. It's me again, Soca Froggy, on the scene. Froggy tracking, if you see the sexy young ting. Froggy tracking a sexy, sexy young ting. Froggy lonely, lonely, lonely. I need a female froggy for my company. I see a nice one, a nice female version with me froggy language. I take an advantage, if you hear me. Chorus. Pong you, I want a pong you, I want a pong you. And she telling me, pong me na, pong me na, pong me na. Now, I'm confident that you could prize a better composition out of someone on the final stages of senile dementia. But if that is what drives the crowds wild, if that is what moves the young people, if they're moved by this bowel movement, then I've been sitting on a masterpiece for years. Here it is. Now, we are amateur musicians here. Don't expect perfection, certainly with these clowns I got on the cheap. I grew up here on this sweet island. Everywhere you turn, it have a real woman. This is the home of steel and brass. Don't mind in the station, you can't get no gas. You see, in this country we have real problem, but the way to fix it is to whine on them. So it's now I come for them with a whole new type of trend. Bandit killing people like fly, but instead we figure out why.
Cup your balls and wave.
Man, this is the latest dance craze.
Cup your balls and wave.
Cheering up on cheering, growing up bandits.
Cup your balls and wave.
Man, if it had fit, we could handle it. This is the tale of Paradise Lost, of Billy Airport Man and damn the cost. Politicians thief so much, I wonder why. Everybody vex on a piper take a blind. But Guinness selling cool, and it have woman to hold. In football we always lost, so what man, we taking time off.
Cup your balls and wave.
This is the latest testicular craze.
Cup your balls and wave.
Jobs galore, construction at a pace.
Cup your balls and wave.
But poor people still suffering in this place.
Cup your balls and wave.
Wave your flag, wave your rag, have a time.
Cup your balls and wave.
Poor people depressing, man, they can't jump and whine. A woman with 10 children ball in victimization. Instead she go and see about sterilization. But I have news for you, ain't nothing you can do. By the end of the 9th day, Trini, don't forget what you say. One more time.
Cup your balls and wave.
Rich people flying out of Trini for the mass.
Cup your balls and wave.
When you come back, bandit waiting for your
Cup your balls and wave.
all politics is the same, PNM, UNC.
Cup your balls
But
and
hard luck Dukes, nobody voting COP. Now this is a tale that is truly Trinidad. I can't tell you when last I did laugh so hard. Friends to the max was a real big fet. The cream of the crop wine until it's soaking wet. Lyman in Carnage, what the hell I see? All them big papi walking like Sudanese refugee.
Cup your balls and wave. Cup your balls and wave. Cup your balls and wave.
That's it. Man, I should have entered that this year. Easy money. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
They told him, don't you ever come around here. Don't wanna see your face, you better disappear. The fire's in their eyes and their words are really clear. So beat it, just beat it. You better run, you better do what you can. Don't wanna see no blood, don't be a macho man. You wanna be tough, better do what you can. So beat it, but you wanna be bad, just beat it. Beat it.
Many years ago, I did an interview in Port of Spain. This was when the Port of Spain City Corporation had first begun to crack down seriously on street vending. One woman sprayed me with a very interesting comment. She said, the government go have to find a way for she to mind she 6 children. Vending is how she takes care of her brood. Now, what was interesting about her story is that she was never a vendor. When she began having children, however, she started vending to get the money to take care of them. And this is something that has stayed with me forever. Personally, I've been so deathly afraid of the high cost of child rearing. The psychological burden has created some sort of spontaneous sterility. It's a form of birth control I'm working to patent. Yet there are so many others out there who seem not to be hemmed in by such economic restrictions. Well, you know what they say, the rich get richer, the poor get kids. It isn't that people don't have access to condoms. I'm sure that family planning gives them away like mints at a restaurant. But if passion should seize upon you in a location that is not close to family planning, there are pharmacies all over the country and condoms are really not that expensive. Let's do a comparative analysis. If that is not enough of a disincentive, then I do not know what is. We in this country have to take responsibility for ourselves. And yes, by we, I mean you. And people complain when the HDC tosses them out on the air because they have children stacked up to the ceiling, but they cannot meet their lofty rent commitment of $200 or $300 per month. Oh, the humanity is what you hear when the HDC puts these people on the streets. I personally knew someone who lived in an apartment on George Street. His rent at the time was $120 per month. He would brag, "I'm not paying that." Does that sound like fiction to you? Well, take a look.
Michael Francis says he was not given any notice before police officers came to his home of 30 years, tore down his door and put out his belongings, himself and his 4 children. He is known as Crazy the Pan Man and says while he knows he owes about 6 months' rent, the HDC has no grounds for the action.
Now, the HDC is not without blame here, by no means. They're trying to alter a mentality that is decades in the making overnight. It was because of how the National Housing Program was administered over the years that we're faced with a wailing and gnashing of teeth. From time to time on the nightly newscasts, the unfortunates are paraded before the viewing public. Young women dressed in frayed lycra bra tops, the wind howling through the giant rollers in their hair. The lament of the oppressed issues from the pavement. They shout down the government that they will vote for in a New York minute. The backdrop, confused dogs making their way through the detritus of humanity, hoping for a meal of thoroughly masticated KFC chicken bones. Children on the sidewalk, oblivious to the urgency of the situation, mesmerized by their PlayStation 3 video game devices, perched atop a 32-inch screen Sony television, placed next to the court's furniture set that is an absolute must for every Christmas season. Am I playing into stereotypes? I hope I'm doing much more than that. It's all about priorities, people. Let's take a look at this shot. Now, residents of Silos have complained over the years of lack of opportunities and profound neglect. Yet, direct television is not too much of a luxury. You would be hard-pressed to witness the same sight in some of the most affluent communities in this country. I'm not rich, but I certainly would not want to bullshit you by saying I'm poor. Yet, I've never even seen direct TV. But enough of that. I want to focus for a moment on employment. The government has been boasting about high employment levels. Members of the government cannot be condemned for that if the economy is flush with money and there are many jobs available. It is the government's right, nay, responsibility to claim credit for achieving high levels of employment. Of course, it does not hurt to have CPEP, which absorbs a lot of those loose numbers and boasts government's brag. I would like to show you a typical CPEP crew.
You told me you could count. You said there's nothing to it. Well, if you're so good at counting, let me hear you do it. 1, 2, 3. Mercy, is that the best you can do? You got to count it higher. Count it higher. I'd like to know who told you you could stop at 3. You got to count it higher. Count it higher. Baby, if you want to count with me, come on, let me hear you count again now.
1 person to sweep, 1 person to hold the scoop, and 1 person to hold the garbage bag. Sometimes there's an additional person to supervise, in other words, the designated talker. And CPEP has done so much for the cause of stones in this country. And by stones, I mean rocks, aggregate. Get your mind out of the gutter. It's not that type of program, at least, well, not yet. But before CPEP, so many stones were left to their own devices, unpainted and disorganized. That has all changed now. Let's take a look.
When I begin to realize
I mean, look at that. Who would not want to have their community CPEP'd? Never mind that it represents millions of dollars in taxpayers' money to keep the blindly Frankenstein-like voting masses in your corner, and it is a seemingly bottomless resource for the rewarding of the party faithful with contracts. Like a police officer once said to Dole Chady during an interrogation, "If I'm lying, I will eat every chair in this office." Well, studio. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Surprisingly, we are still as a nation ruminating on the smelters. Perhaps the issue was thrust back into our consciousness by this little gem.
Some of the drug elements operating in that part of the country have gotten involved in this whole smelter thing, and we are trying to determine exactly to what extent that has taken place.
Yes, and interplanetary travelers were the ones really responsible for the construction of the pyramids at Giza and Chichen Itza. The truth is, this is an easy sales pitch for the Prime Minister because there's no shortage of brain-dead suckers out there who will hang on to his every word. Unfortunately, this is not unique to the PNM, but it is indeed inherent in the very nature of politics in this country. And then poor Winston Dukaran shouts from the platform to the Prime Minister, "Prove it or shut up," thereby falling into the pit neatly dug for him by the PNM, where credibility and respect go to die. Dukes, that was bait for Panday, but any crapo fish will do. Well, it is that time again, time for Trini Dictionary. I'd first like to start with a segment for the Cuban doctors who are being imported to this country to make up for the shortage of healthcare workers and belligerent members of MPAT. It is critical that you're able to understand certain medical conditions as described by a Trinidadian. For example, imagine you're approached by a patient and he tells you, "Doc, I have a numbness in my foot." Now, in this country, a foot is actually a leg, so you will want to examine the entire appendage. Also, "Doc, my sugar giving me real pressure." Well, he's not talking about granulated sugar. He's referring to diabetes. In a case where someone comes to you and says, "Doc, I have a sore foot," this is probably some sort of ulcer on the foot or leg. You'll just have to check properly. And finally, for the Cuban doctors, "Doc, I have the run-ins." I know your instincts will lead you to think that the patient is referring to some sort of gastrointestinal discombobulation. I, however, have been reliably informed that this is a term which encapsulates all forms of STDs. Let's get to some other words now. Corfm. Spell it with me. C-O-R-F-F-M. Let's now use it in a sentence. Oh, he looks so peaceful lying there in his corfm. Feeling that there are a lot of you out there wondering, where's the joke in that? How else would you pronounce it? And, you know, I have been warned that if I continue making sport of the lesser tongued, I might myself end up in a corfm. But I have a responsibility to educate the public. I've also noticed that Trinidadians have a tendency to pluralize words where unnecessary. For example, "I could get a Cokes, please." This beverage is particularly ideal for washing down, for example, a shrimp's roti. And our final lesson for this program, the word is student. I remember when I was a DBDB youth in Fatima, a very prominent member of society, who shall remain nameless, came to make a sizable donation to the school. He was asked to address the school, and it was on that day I learned how to pronounce the word properly. Ladies, gentlemen, students. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. And before I take off, I want to comment briefly on the crime situation. It'll always be with us, so I will always have to say something about it. Both the Commissioner of Police and the Minister of National Security are crowing about the low incidence of violent crime during the carnival season. What I found remarkable is that the minister gleefully announced that the blimp was now working in tandem with law enforcement on the ground.
One of the other developments also is that the eye in the sky, which is now totally integrated with the ground forces, again able to transmit real-time information. In the past, what happened is that the surveillance cameras taped, and then you had to remove the cameras and then look at it in the event something happened. We have now progressed to the point where there is no real-time transmission of activity.
That is amazing. So let me get this straight. It took, what, 2-3 years to achieve this synergy? So all of its prior use was an occasional distraction, something to titillate the gum-chewing, dumbfounded masses, an occupation for withering pensioners sitting out on their porches, ruminating their false teeth. Where's that there, by? Well, let me show you something with some real potential. Let me take you out with the latest crime-fighting weapon.
Is the most backward system I've ever seen in any civilized country.
$45 for one movie, or you're getting to see 2 or 3 movies for that.
That's someone very obscene to the women, showing them middle finger, using the 4-letter word.